Today's lesson, you will be creating a zombie with your own self-portrait. You should have already taken those pictures and sent them to yourself, and we will gather those later. And also downloaded the zip file from Focus that I provided for you. So let's remember what we have to do when we have a zip file. We have to go down to our envelope down here, which is our file finder. Go to Downloads. Go to Zombie, click on it once to highlight it, right click, extract all. I want you to make sure that you choose to put it in pictures, so you're going to browse the computer, go to this PC, choose pictures, select folder, and extract. It is important to do this before you go any farther because you won't be able to find the images in Photoshop. Next, I want you to open Photoshop. We are going to start with our background. So we're going to go to File and Open. Go to this PC, Pictures, Zombie, and pull up the background picture that I provided. You are welcome to be creative and choose your own background and have fun with this project. At any point, you can add your own twist or add your own textures, background, colors. It's completely up to you as long as you're following these steps that I'm showing you so you learn the new options in Photoshop for further assignments. So this is the image I'm going to use for the background today. I'm going to go ahead and take out the white background, the sky, because I want to put in a more dramatic sky. So I'm going to choose my quick selection tool, second one down on the tool panel in the right column. And it's going to be easier if I select the sky first. That was a really quick, I was just going over, clicking and dragging throughout the sky. I'm going to hold down Alt and bring back some of these buildings that it took out that are really close to that sky color. So while holding down Alt on my keyboard, I'm just going over these other little areas that I want to bring back into my selection. Ultimately, I want to select all of this and deselect the sky. So to do that, I'm going to go to Select on the top and go down to Inverse. When I choose Inverse, it now chose the foreground and the buildings and took out the sky. At this time, I'm going to choose Select and Mask on the top. This will bring up another window for me. There's a lot of options that we're going to go over later when we work on other composites, as far as smoothing the edges, feathering them, contrast, you can shift the edge. But for now, I want to keep all of these the same. I want you to go down to towards the bottom and it says Output Settings. Click on the drop-down arrow and select Output to New Layer with Layer Mask. When you choose New Layer with Layer Mask, it will keep your original layer and create a new layer for you. So go ahead and press OK. If you notice, now on our Layers panel, we have two layers. We have our original background layer, which is now closed off, we cannot see it, and our top one with the layer mask. For this project, I want to go ahead and turn that background layer back on by clicking on the eye. I'm going to go up to File, Open, and bring in this cloudy sky I provided for you in your zip file. So I'm going to open the cloudy sky. Here's our cloudy sky. I'm going to drag the icon for the cloudy sky into my background layer. Once I have the white frame around letting me know I can drop it in there, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to go and choose my Move tool on the top left. This will allow me to move my sky around. I can hold down Shift so I do not distort my clouds, and I'm going to drag it to where it's just large enough to cover that sky area. Move it up a little bit because I would like some of the white to come back in there, and I'm going to say OK. Once again, you notice it's still on top of my image. If I go to my Layers panel on the right hand side, I'm going to click and drag that layer in between the two layers I created. Now I have my sky peeking through that background that we selected out. Move it around, get it exactly where you want it. Once again, you feel free to get your own sky. I'm going to change the opacity of this layer, so making sure I have that layer selected. I'm going to click on my opacity and I am going to bring that down to bring some of that detail back and to make it look a little more natural. I have mine at 55. It's completely up to you how you want to have your opacity on your image. And there is our sky. So that gives us a more dramatic look. It's looking great. I'm going to go ahead and flatten these. There's multiple ways we can do it. Since it's just the 3 layers, we don't have anything else right now, I can go ahead and go to layer and choose flatten image. If at any point, I'm going to go to edit and step back, you have more than the layers you want flattened, you want to make sure you select the top layer, hold down shift on your keyboard and select the bottom layer. And then we would go up to layer on the top and go to merge those layers. So we're merging the layers that we just created. So now we have our background with a more dramatic sky. At this point, we're going to go to File, Open, and I want you to open the picture that you took of yourself. If you need to pause the video right now, go to your email and save it and download it to your computer. Go ahead and do that. And then open it. I'm going to use an image of a model I took a few years back. And I'm going to use her because I couldn't find any pictures of me that were worth turning into a zombie right now. So I'm going to work with Lauren. So I want to make sure I take out the background. For you, if you took your picture with the gray background, there's an easy fix. You can click on your eraser tool, click and hold on your eraser tool, go down to the magic eraser tool, and simply click on the gray background. This won't work very well for the background that I have, and it won't work very well for you if part of your clothing will match the background. It will take out more than you want. So I'm going to go ahead and step back, and I'm going to choose the quick selection tool. The quick selection tool you've been working with already. You can change the size of it with the brackets on your keyboard, and I'm just clicking inside of the part I want to select. So I'm telling Photoshop what colors I want to select, and it is leaving out the colors I'm not asking for. If by chance I go outside and I go too far, I want to go ahead and press Alt. Well, it's choosing way more than I want to. I'm going to choose Alt, and I'm going to drag it on the outside, and I do not want those colors, and bring her back. So now I have the marching ants going completely around my model, Lauren, and the thing she's holding on to. So I want to go ahead and do the same option we did for our sky and use Select and Mask. Select and Mask will bring up this other option. And if I choose this second tool, Refine Edge Brush, I can go ahead and just go over some areas that I want to. She's missing a hair here. I'm just brushing over that. That's bringing the hair back. There was a piece that went through right here through her hair. I just brushed over that and it will bring that in. So you can go around your edges. This is a nice option if you have hair and you don't want to cut it off so it looks more natural. Once I have that done, there's options here. You can do a smoother edge. You can feather the edge. I don't want it feathered too much, but there are sometimes you're going to want that. You can create contrast on the edge a little bit. You can shift it. So we can shift it a little bit. Bring that edge in to take away any of the outside that we have. I have that at -7. Then I'm going to go to my output setting, once again, drop down menu, and I am going to select the new layer with layer mask. I usually choose that option, so I do have my original still to work with if I need it. There's options up here. We can see how it would look when we're done with it. It's giving us different background edges so we can really get an idea of what we're looking at. Once we're done, we're going to go ahead and say OK. That will give us our model with our background taken out. So I have my original layer here that's turned off. Now we are going to have some fun making her look like a zombie. So I have some textures already in the file for you. I'm going to go File, Open, choose one of the cracked sand. I'm going to choose cracked sand 2. But once again, if you want to get different types of textures, feel free to be creative. I'm going to pull the icon for my sand texture, my cracked sand, and pull it on into the image, making sure I'm covering her face. To move around, make sure it's over her face. Now I'm going to right click on the cracked sand layer, choose the option about a little more than a third of the way down, create clipping mask. What this is going to do is it's only going to put this on my model. It's going to take it off of that background that we created. And if you notice over in our layers panel, there's an arrow now going down to this image saying it's creating a clipping mask with this layer. This isn't looking great yet. It's not where we want. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in with my magnifying glass and change it to plus. Zoom in to her face so I can see what I'm working with. I want to change the opacity on my cracked sand. Bring that down to whatever opacity you want. This is your creative project. You can do it however strong you want. I'm going to move it into place where I like the cracks running across her face. Next, I'm going to change the mode on this layer. Right now it's on normal. I'm going to drop down to multiply. If you notice now, that brought those cracks more natural look into her skin. But we have the cracks going through her hair, on her clothes, down into her neck, on her hand, which we're going to do a little bit differently later on. So I'm going to add a mask to this layer. Down here on the bottom of the panel, add layer mask. It's a white layer mask. So I'm going to go to my color swatches and make sure black is on the top. I want opposite of my layer mask. You can click this double-sided arrow if it is not on top to change the two. So now I have black on the top. I'm going to go to my paintbrush tool. Paintbrush tool is the fourth one down on the double side. Once again, you can change the size with the bracket on your keyboard. And I want to make sure that my brush is about in the middle of being soft or hard. Change my opacity to 100%. And I'm just simply going to start brushing those cracks off of her hair and her clothes and her neck. Anywhere I don't want those cracks, I'm going to brush them off. The reason I'm showing you how to do it this way and not to use your eraser tool is because if I accidentally go into her face, it is an easy fix to just swap the white and the black and paint it back on. Then I switch back to my black and I can continue taking that off of wherever I don't want it. If I need a little bit harder edge around her chin, I can change my edge. Get that, erase that off of her neck. So making sure I have that from everywhere around her. I want to zoom in a little bit more and be sure that I erase this cracks off of her eyes. Might want to take it off of this edge of her nose right here where I'm going to step back on those two. I want to change the opacity. Don't want it so much taken off, but right on the end of her nose, right here. Might want to change it off the edge of her lip. I've got some. Change my opacity back up to 100%. I left some on her hair over here. Take it off of her eyebrows if you want. I like that one on her eyebrow over there. I might leave a little bit here and there. Alright, so once you have it off of her eyes and her lips where you need to take it off, you are good to go. Once again, you can check your opacity, make sure it's where you want it to be. We're going to repeat this process now for her neck. So I'm going to zoom back out. So when I place it in there, I'm going to go back to my cracked sand, grab the icon, drag it in here, put it over her neck. I'm going to change the size a little bit, so I change it up, maybe even tilt it some, say okay. We really don't have to right now because we're right on the edge, but just for the sake of getting in the habit, I'm going to right click on that layer, create clipping mask so it's only on my subject, change my opacity, and once again I'm going to change it from normal to multiply. Once I do that, create a mask, go to my paintbrush, make sure it's black, I'm good there, got it at 100%, I'm going to change the size, bring it larger, and this time I am erasing it from everywhere but her neck. I'm going to erase it off there, I'm going to erase it off of her face, erase it off of her arm. There we go. So now we have the cracks on her neck. Her neck is a little bit more out of focus than her face. So I'm going to, on this layer, go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And I want to give a little bit, go to this layer, off of the mask, onto layer, Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And I want to just blur that just a tad to make that go into her neck, which is a little blurred. I'm going to say OK. Now we have her neck done, we have her face done. Go back to our cracked sand, bring that in one more time for her arms. I'm going to rotate this so I make sure that it's covering her whole hand. I can stretch it out a little bit. Alright. So once again, just for the sake of getting in the habit, I'm going to right click, create clipping mask, change the opacity, and then change normal to multiply, add a layer mask, go to my paintbrush, and I'm going to brush that off everywhere but her hands. So take it off of her clothes, take it off the background. All I want now is for her to have some cracks on her arms. Alright, we are almost done. Next we're going to add a little bit more to her face, make her look a little bit more like a zombie. I'm going to go to File, Open, and grab these other textures that I have saved for you. I have Rust. I'm going to open that up. I'm going to drag my icon into my model layer. This is really large. I'm going to go to my Move tool, making sure I have this box around my Move tool. I can say if it's not there, make sure you click Show Transform Controls. I'm going to hold down Shift and resize that so it will fit on her face. I'm going to bring it down to about there. Say OK. I'm going to zoom in so I can work a little bit better. So I'm going to change the opacity on here, bring it down just a tad, not too much because I like it pretty dark. I'm going to change my normal mode to multiply. I want to tilt this a little bit because I really like those lines within that rust, and it kind of makes it look like it's almost her nose bone. There we go, get that in there. And this time I'm going to add a layer mask. I'm going to paintbrush the edges. And I want to soften up that edge as much as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that hardness all the way to the left side and then start painting away the edges. Once I get the hard edges off, what I want to do is I want to change my opacity. Bring that down, way down. I have mine about at 20. I'm going to change the size of my brush, and this time, as I'm clicking over our rust layer, I'm just going to blend those layers in really nice with her skin. I want to move this a little bit up on her nose. So we've got one open hole in her face. We are going to now bring one more in. So we're going to go back to our files. I'm going to go File, Open. I'm going to bring in the rust. Drag that into our layer. Size this down. If you notice, I dragged this into a layer down here, so it automatically gave me my clipping mask, which is fine for this project. I do want to make sure it's on top of the cracks that I have, so I'm going to go ahead and drag that up to the top here, zoom in, and figure out where I want to put this crack on her face. I'm thinking I might want to put it right about here. I might even want those two to kind of run in together. Okay, I'm going to say okay, that's where I want it. I'm going to change the opacity just a little bit on here and then change my mode to multiply. Once I have that, make sure I have a mask on this layer. Have black on top, go back to my paintbrush. I already changed my opacity down to 18. I'm going to put it back up to 100% to get these hard edges before I change my opacity down to blend that in. So I want to make sure I have 100% to get these rough edges, sharp edges. Now I can change my opacity down and work on smoothing that in really nicely. So I might need to bring it up a little bit more than that. There we go. Now at 50%. There we go. Looking good. I'm going to zoom out so we can see where she's at. I want to change the opacity on that layer a little bit more. It's a little too dark for me. There we go. So there are a couple other things we can do. I'm going to go ahead and leave her like this, but I want to show you two more things before I bring her in. You can use your clone tool. Here's your clone tool. I'm going to change the size with the brackets on my keyboard to where I'm just in the white part of her eye. Hold down Alt on my keyboard and click. This is telling Photoshop that you want to use the white of her eye. And I have to go down to the layer where she's at. I was trying it up here. It wouldn't let me do anything. Hold down Alt on the white of her eye and brush that into her eye. If you notice, where I held down Alt is moving when I move my cursor. So I have to keep reapplying to the white of her eye. So I'm not going to do this whole thing because I don't want to go back too many steps, but you can make it to where she just has white eye, more like a zombie. You can choose to do that. I'm going to step back to bring her eye back in. I'm using Control Alt Z on my keyboard, and then I am going to show you one other thing you can do is you can use your smudge tool, which is underneath the blur tool. You have blur, sharpen, and smudge. So you can use your smudge tool and click and drag it over her. Once again, I have to go to that layer, click and drag it over her eye, and just kind of smudge that eye and give it a really creepy look. So those are two options you can do while you're working on your zombie picture. Totally up to you. I actually like the smudge. I will leave the smudge. So before I bring this into my background layer, I want to save it as a Photoshop layer with my layers, Photoshop file with my layers in case I want to work on it later. So I'm going to choose where I put it. I'm going to put it in pictures. I'm going to change this to Photoshop PSD on the top. That will save it as a Photoshop file you can open back up with these layers. You can open pictures, and I'm going to save that as a Photoshop layer. Then I am going to go ahead and go to Layer and Flatten Image. It's going to ask me if I want to discard this hidden layer, and I'm going to say OK. So now we have our background, and if you notice it added a white background. There's two options we can do. We can go ahead and I'm going to show you the fastest way for now. Flatten image, and we're going to go back to our magic eraser tool, and we're going to just take out that white. So once we have that white gone, we have our layer with the background gone. We are going to drag our zombie into our background layer, and we are going to move her into place wherever we want her. Keep in mind your rule of thirds. Keep in mind how your image is, how you want to put your zombie in there. And once I have her in place, I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to name this layer. So I'm going to say this is my zombie. And I have my background layer and my zombie layer. So if you notice, my colors are way off. There's a lot of things we can do in compositing to make these layers all match up really nicely. For now, what I want to show you is I just want to show you this adjustment layer. We can go to create a new fill or adjustment layer. We're going to click on that. It's the circle that's half white, half black. Click on that. And we're going to use the gradient map for today. So we have the gradient map. And we have many options in here. We can click on here and choose what gradient map we want to add for our image that makes it work best for what we want to do. A lot of fun ones. We can do custom gradient maps later on. I don't want to get into that right now because it's going to be more than you guys are able to do for now. But if you want to learn more, go ahead and click on this bar, play around with it, and be creative. So once I made this black and white, I'm happy with the final image. You guys can go ahead and save this as a PSD file so that you can change it later on, or when you are completely finished, you're going to flatten it, save it as a PDF. I want you to save it with your last name _ zombie. Save it as a PDF, which is about 2/3 of the way down. Make sure you tell the computer where you want it to go so you can find it for uploading to Focus, and save it. And there you have your zombie project. Upload it to Focus for grading, and I cannot wait to see your creativity.